Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the overall economic outlook of Pakistan. As we all know that earlier Dr. Hafeez Sheikh, the advisor to the Prime Minister on Finance, in fact during a meeting with the anchor persons, in fact mentioned that the overall outlook is getting better. He was talking about the remittances, he was talking about the production output, the exports of Pakistan, and obviously there's a good news that during the last almost 8 months, if you start from July till this month, end of February, 27%, we have witnessed that 27% of the overall the trade gap has decreased. So that's a very good sign. At least 27% means almost 1/4. That is the problem area for Pakistan. As far as inflation is concerned, some very important measures were earlier taken in order to curb that. That has also been controlled to a certain level. Still, the inflation is not down to that level where it should have been. When you talk about the overall reserves, according to the Governor of the State Bank of Pakistan, Raza Bakir, they stand at $12.5 billion. Good enough for the export of, or rather the import of the 3 months. And then talking about markets volatility and coronavirus outbreak, we all know that this has actually shaken the entire global capital markets, including the market of Pakistan. And obviously there's a fear. People are traveling not to that level normally, which they do. A lot of people not going to China. I mean, just imagine that the outbreak is in China, but the shares of Lufthansa in Germany fell down. So you can well imagine the overall impact of this. So we'll definitely be talking about that. And then government's efforts to bring investment in Pakistan. Now that is also something very important. Earlier we have witnessed that the investment normally comes in the capital market. They make money and take the money out. But interestingly this time, we are looking forward to some genuine investment which can create jobs and which can also help Pakistan increase its exports. To talk about this, we have with us in our studio. Let me introduce you to our panelist. On my right is Shakil Rame Saab. Shakil Rame Saab is a known economist. Thank you very much. And we have with us Dr. Professor Kamran Naqi Khan Saab. He is a senior business strategist. Thank you very much. And we have with us Abdul Jalil Saab. He's a public policy analyst. Thank you very much, Jalil Saab. Now, let's start off from the inflation point, sir, because a lot of people are directly affected by that. Government, it's doing its level best to curb that. But sir, despite the fact that they're opening a lot of utility stores, subsidized rates are ensured for a certain class. But do you think that these measures are enough, or the actual issue is about the demand and supply? Because earlier what we witnessed, the rise in the wheat prices, rise in the sugar prices, and then the issue of exports. So there is a lot of confusion on that part also, sir. Let's focus towards the inflation. Your take.
Look, first of all, if we look at that, the oil prices in the international market, so they have a huge take on our domestic economy also, and that really, they definitely contributed towards our control of the inflation. Then the government have taken some measures to give subsidy to utility stores, and then they took very strong stance on their wheat and sugar prices and other stuff, and some prices are coming down. But the issue is, Faisal Saab, so what is the level of inflation? 12.41%. So should we celebrate this level?
No, sir.
So
we should be very worried about this.
One thing, and second thing, if we're talking about the reserve of the state bank, so either these reserves are unreserved, or is there some money coming in the capital market, or some you are borrowing from the other people. So that is the money which you are showing as the reserve of your country. So we have to decode these small things. Then we can.
Question: is it your money, or you just deposited it in your bank?
Yeah, it's a borrowed money most of the time. So another thing is you are getting the money from this capital market because your interest rate is very high. So to be very clear, first of all, government have to start speak truth with the people. People know that we are going through a very worse economic crisis due to multiple reasons. One is that the debt crisis. So our debt is very high due to the previous part of the governments, and we have taken the debt to that level which is unsustainable.
5 trillion rupees were released to pay off the internal as well as the external debt.
It
5 trillion.
It is beyond the capacity, and it is beyond, you can say it's not the fault of current governments. So if our debt is so high. So government have to communicate it to properly to the people. Look, we could not transfer your whole benefit of the lower oil prices because we have to meet some other criteria. For example, we were not able to meet our revenue, tax revenue. So there is, we got some window where you can enhance, but not by transforming the whole benefit to the people, but you are keeping some a cushion for the government to meet that tax revenue. After that tax revenue increase, you have seen that the IMF reach agreement with the government. So government have to tell the truth to the people. People can trust them then. If you are telling to like that, so something is short term is happening in the next you can say the year, it will not be happening. The people will start to criticize you again if you are not speaking truth with them. You have to be very clear on your strategy. One thing, and second thing, what we are getting in the term of the production sector, how we are increasing our production. I cannot see some much you can say improvement on that. Although there is a bit and pieces in the textile side sector, we are seeing there is some improvement. So that is not really that much improvement which you are looking for. Third thing, our revenue, tax revenue. Government is telling us, so this year we have 16% or 20% more revenue as compared to last year. So we have to look into the question. So what was the exchange rate last year and what is the exchange rate today? Because if in the last year when the dollar was 100 rupee, you are getting the 70% sales tax. If you when your rupee is a dollar is 150 and you are again getting the sales tax of 17 rupees, that's meaning it would not be 17, it would be 25 or 26 rupees. And you are saying it's our revenue is increasing. No, in the real term it is not increasing. In real term maybe we are going back, because we have to look at that our money exchange rate also we have to bring in. And another factor is the inflation. So how much inflation is increasing. So these are all indicators. Then we that's why I always say that government is just trying to government is busy to present some you can say financial indicators. The real thing would be how the government is improving the production indicators.
That is the key. Now, Professor Saab, whatever is happening is right in front of you. People do have very genuine concerns. I mean, when you talk about inflation, you talk about other issues, things are not that great. But yet the government is committed, they're trying their level best, but obviously it takes time. Now, people expect that things would be different within a week's time or something like that. Dr. Saab, the direction, let's focus on that. Is that the right approach of the government, sir, to sort of tackle all sorts of issues currently prevailing in our economic setup? And secondly, sir, if not, what is the missing link now?
The missing link is they don't have a long-term strategic plan, the government. If we see what is your next 5 to 10 years plan, keeping in view the economy, situation of the economy of the last 2 years. So far, comprehensive strategic analysis had not been undertaken by government of Pakistan to set and planning and direction. As far as planning and direction is concerned, there are some symptomatic treatment and there are some long-term actions are there. Introduction of IMF program has totally fastened the hand of the government in terms of making a long-term plan. But even then, you have to have a long-term plan. So there is but government has some vision, but vision and as far as direction of the plan is, there is some clear objective what is to be achieved in the next 2 to 3 years, next 5 years, next 10 years. So there should be smart goals. Okay, what is in 2021, 2022, 2023. So that would create a stability and climate for investment and export, and that would create a climate for productivity and investment by the private sector. Another important thing which government is taking a lot of liabilities, past liabilities, financial and social liabilities, social deficit, safety network, social. So as far as that area is concerned, government is actually not much emphasizing on investment, foreign direct investments and exports. As far as now, just you have mentioned that we are not much interested in portfolio investment, we are more invested in tangible investment that create the job. That is one. CPEC is the one opportunity that is possible, but there are possibilities that Saudi government and other governments of Turkey are also promised to invest it. So that is creating an opportunity. The only problem for investors is,
commits that they, for example, they will invest in the infrastructure or they will invest in some. But my point is that how long normally does it take? I mean, Saudis have committed.
It will take, at least if you want to see the, as far as the economy is concerned, it will take another 2 to 3 years to recover from this crisis, not so soon. I just give you an example. Oil embargo of 1973 war, I mean, the whole Western economy came down.
It was standstill.
Standstill. And this economy recovered in 1996. It took 20 years. It took 20 years to recover that whole Western. But by that time, a huge investment was shifted from Western Europe and USA to Singapore, Taiwan,
Far Eastern
sites. They all multinational. They said, okay, we are more interested to look after the interest of the stockholders. We are not nationalist, right? So this is what the concern of the private sector is. Private sector's concern is profitability. Private sector is looking after the investor's interest. And then now that kind of, we call it, that kind of premises have now been broadened now. It's no more a profit maximization. You have to look after the society, you have to corporate social responsibility, you have to look after the environment. So your operations must have stewardship, environmental stewardship throughout your operation. These are the new standards. So these kind of things should come in our investments, foreign direct investment or exports, then we can boost our exports. From 2008 to 2018, there was very few investment in manufacturing sector, capacity building. As a result, now if you have even export orders, but you don't have a capacity to fulfill those orders.
I mean, we all witnessed that.
So what happened in last 10 years, there was no
status. GSP plus.
Yeah, GSP plus. Yeah. And that's why now if you see Pakistan's exports, it's about $14+ billion in last 8 months. And $13 billion plus in remittances. It's a good progress. But now what the Governor of State Bank says, our export is less than 10% of the GDP. It should be more than that. Even smaller countries and countries which are weaker than Pakistan, they have better export.
So 10% of our GDP means that around $30 billion plus dollars.
Yes, it should be not less. It should be not less than $35 billion. If you want,
ideally speaking.
Yes, ideally speaking. So Pakistan's GDP's ratio of export is, because we never remained export oriented.
No, that was all
in the last 30 years we made this economy
so painful.
Consumer economy.
Exactly.
So our import bill touched to $64 billion just because. So government have reduced that, and in the last, from July to December, they have reduced about minimized $7 billion. So now the deficit was $2 billion. So it's mean that had it been $9 billion, we would have arranged about again loan of $7 billion to repay that.
So that is the most.
That is that.
Now,
so we are quite. But another important thing which Faisal Sahab I must mention, that utility store prices. No, with utility stores, yes, that is a very important sales point to provide services to the common people. But you have to now brand that utility stores. I have not seen in any media about how much turnover of the traffic is there in the utility stores. No doubt their sales have markedly increased, but prime ministers and other dignitaries should visit, and they should also buy those goods and services like common people.
When Shaukat Aziz Saab was the prime minister, and there was this retired brigadier who was looking after the utility stores corporation. And at that time, I mean, it was also calculated that this is a very good initiative, but this is not going to be the only effort by the government, because this cannot look
Successful.
after the demand of the public, and everybody wants subsidized rates as far as the basic commodities are
Basic,
concerned.
like
Sugar, oil,
If you
wheat,
see-
rice.
I just
tea.
give you an example. Oil, simple oil, that is 250 liter or two, available at 220, 225, 67. But hardly few people are there in the utility. So you have to sell that idea. Okay, you should visit, because now it's
People
in the
have this
background.
perception that maybe in the utility store, the products which we
Why?
buy are not of good quality.
Why there is a lack of trust?
But
Trust
maybe there is a
deficit.
reality
so,
also,
So
sir.
trust. Okay, when dignitaries and prime ministers and all those people will go and shop their products, few. So that will create a momentum in the people about the identity of this utility store and its important. So this is the way you can increase the traffic and you minimize that that kind of pressure, or benefits are not being properly touched by the people.
All right.
This-
Now, sir, your take, but let me put another question for you here.
Yes.
I want your comment on this Prime Minister's SAS program, sir. 192 billion
Excellent.
rupees have been allocated for this. Now, I remember it's a BISP, Benazir Income Support Fund,
Yes.
for that matter. And then when the Prime Minister, the former one, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, was in power, sir, I remember he also introduced 6 different programs for the youth. Loans for them, educational loans for their studies, but if you have done your masters, then you'll be given a job, you'll be getting some sort of a stipend around 10,000 rupees or so.
Internship.
These were all brilliant programs. Where did they go? That's my question. I mean, starting a program doesn't mean that you are going to look after the entire issue.
Faisal sir, first I would like to say that, this government have, although adopted some of good economic measure for the recovery, of our sagging economy, but there is certain things which needs to be clarified on the part of the government.
For example?
What I can say, the long range program, which Professor very recently, he has just now, he has mentioned about it. Long term recovery program, what are the various steps which the government intends to take, through different phases, through successive phases for materializing the overall economic vision of the party and of the government. Of course, they synchronize among themselves, number one. And number two is that in this respect, I would like to say that until and unless your own vision is not clear, what would happen as a result of it, the consequential effect would be the irreconcilability, the non-harmonization between the various pillars of the economy. For example, you can say the monetary policy, the taxation policy, your investment policy, your human resource management.
Are they complementing each other or
Yes,
not?
sir. Are they complementing or negating each
Absolutely.
other effect?
That's
For
the point.
example, you make a
Absolutely
promise.
spot on.
Yes, it's the duty of the government, as far as through the situation which we are posing, it is the duty of the government to provide a feasible infrastructure of governance and physical infrastructure for facilitating by providing essential utilities to the future investors. And in this respect, they were supposed to provide a one-window operation, and that requires, one window operation depends upon that how sharp is your vision, how active and how efficient is your governance structure is there, which is something totally missing in this government as well. And I would like to say that so far the government has not carried out a proper survey or proper study that if the governance structure are not responding according to the expectation of the investors, then where are the disconnect, where are the gaps which needs to be plugged in. That's very important.
Makes a lot of sense,
Number
yes.
one. Number two, I would like to say, so far as the social sector economy is concerned, this is everyday house economy is concerned, this totally depends upon how active is your supply chain system, in which this utility stores you were just mentioning plays a key role in it. Utility store, I've got in utility store, these are the utility store. These are this plays a very important role in providing the checks and in controlling the price structure in society, right, over various commodities. This is very important. But what the government has failed to do is that the network of these supply chain systems should have been been spread further, should have been expanded. It is very important because without this mechanism, you will not be able to control the price
Jalil Sahab,
mechanism
recently
of
what we
the
have witnessed,
society
I
as
mean,
well.
this issue of hoarding, I mean,
Yeah, this
look,
that
I
is
mean,
what-
even the mask, I mean, these are the days when people are really afraid of coronavirus. Can you imagine the mask which used to be sold for, let's say, 20 rupees?
50, 60 rupees a
15
packet.
rupees.
Is.
Yes.
Packet.
And A, it is not available. B, the price has been
900
multiplied by
for it.
9-10 times.
You know, the government, that is
I
why
mean-
you must have seen that why the government, for example, this flour crisis have appeared, the atta crisis, sugar crisis have appeared, and even the inflation have hit hard the everyday household economy of the people as well. And the people, you know, they suffered from a lot of economic insecurity as well. But this was the duty of the government to, you know, take precaution from the day one that under inflation normally it happened, that the culture of the hoarding and the culture of the disruption in the everyday economy. This culture of hoarding would cause disruption in everyday economy. As a result of it, there would be a shortage of the essential good, you know, pushing the prices of everyday goods upward.
Artificial shortage is always created
Yes.
by a few.
And
And
you
they
know,
capitalize on that.
the provinces have got proper administrative mechanisms, especially the officers, the bureaucratic mechanism have been applied to check the forces of the mechanism. For example, food magistrates are there. The deputy commissioner institution mainly is there to provide a strong network of coordination among various, you know, the service suppliers of the district. But unfortunately, they have failed because once again, the government could not predict it. This was because of, secondly, the government could not enforce them and enforce the discipline, market discipline in our society, number two. And number three, the agriculture sector is very important. If we want to export, if we want to raise our export right now, the immediate advantage which is available to us is the agriculture goods and agriculture produce, which should have been enhanced by now through the introduction of certain drastic measures, which the government has failed to take. For example, their financial input. As you know very well, the drought is a growing phenomenon, number one problem. Number two is that the fast developing the spaces of urbanization is actually causing shrinkage in our fertile farmland as well. This is again causing shortage in the production of our agriculture produce. So the government is supposed to take some immediate measure in this respect, right? China is one country which imports heavily. It rests heavily on the imported food, and we could have filled up this gap.
We are ready to export. We have already exported sugar to China.
So where are the
and
linkages?
according to the ambassador of China, I mean, this is one of the premium quality product.
And right now, I'm not talking about the manufacturing sector, which is already, you know, the growth of the manufacturing sector is negative, and they are
Definitely, sir. We will talk about that also. But now, since the government is ready to facilitate, whether you talk about the SAS program, in which Prime Minister has been able to allocate 192 billion rupees. So, a lot of jobs, concept of entrepreneurship, this is going to be there. But obviously, when you talk about the overall condition, you know, you can give money, but if it is not feasible for investment, I mean, and looking at the growth rate, looking at the inflation, looking at the interest rate, and so many other factors, it is not an easy task for a newcomer in the market, right? A. Secondly, sir, the Prime Minister, I heard, and he's always been very ambitious, you know, when it talks about the housing sector. Now, housing sector, sir, basically relates to 40-45 different industries, whether you talk about steel or brick manufacturing or cement or you name it. And plus, on top, you need workers. Commitment was of 5 million houses, right, sir? I'm not sure about the program, whether it has started, they've been able to purchase land, because there is a long philosophy. The Prime Minister was mentioning that the banks normally end up giving away 80 to 90% in countries like UK and Europe and Western world. When even you compare yourself in the South Asian market, we are the lowest. Our money, that is the bank's money, primarily given to certain people for the construction of houses, 0.02%. Just imagine, 0.02%, whereas the Western world is around 80%. Even in India, it's 10% plus. So my point is that don't you think that certain major reshuffling in the laws, it is imminent now, sir?
Look, Faisal Saab, sometimes I feel pity on myself and my colleagues. So we sit here and again we're talking the same stuff. So the things are very common and they are very easy stuff if somebody want to learn it. If you don't want to learn it, then it's up to you. So the team they have imported at this point of the time just to look at the economy. So that is what the Asad Umar was telling to the PTI government, we have to take this stuff for some time we will go through. Then no, he is not managing well, so bring the importer team. So what the importer team made a difference? Nothing at all. We have the higher inflation. We have, did we solve the problem of the production sector? No, our focus is on the tax revenue. Our focus is on the increasing the interest rate, and now our focus is on the privatization. For God's sake, did any one of you have did some study on the welfare impact of the privatization? What happened in the Brazil? When they did the privatization, there were 26% straight drop in their wages. What happened in the Argentina?
Unemployment?
Look
at what happened to peso. 30% down in one day.
So, are they able
Bolivia.
to revive their economy?
Bolivia, the whole of Latin America.
200% interest rate
Just
per
imagine.
day.
Venezuela.
So
That's
are
another
they,
example.
Are they able to solve their problem by the privatization? No, it have increased their problem. On the welfare concept, even you take the example of UK, they have to reverse some things from the Thatcher's era to the back to the government. So one thing and second thing, if you are going to for privatization, for example, we say it's a very sinkhole for our economy, like steel mill is a sinkhole for economy like this. So who will pay for the laying off the staff? It would be another billion. Will you able to save such money to pay back some your debt? So anybody did some calculation, just you're putting an argument like that, no, let's go. So privatization, the private sector, I always say there should be a difference between the privatization and the private sector. Private sector should be encouraged, but not at the cost of the welfare.
But sir, if there is an institute full of staff who are not working, not even compatible at any level, I mean, to be very honest, and I can give you a long list of certain institutions.
So then I add
that is the point, sir. If you are keeping it, it's like what you should call it.
Okay, Faisal, let me conclude my argument here. So who is responsible to make them profitable? Our
The person in charge of government primarily.
Our governments.
Yes.
That's when our government is not performing. So give it to the private sector. Bring some consultant of the governance and say run the.
Sir, if you remember General Qayyum, prior to him there was a colonel who died, and then later on General Qayyum from PMLN, who's a senator also, became the head of the
factory.
No, sir, of steel mill.
The steel mill.
And I remember, sir, it used to give 4, 5, 6 billion rupees a year profit.
That's what I'm saying. So that is the lame excuse. It's like that.
Same people. Same.
If you like,
It's all
if
about
there's like that, you have a car, and you hire a driver. The driver every day go for the accident. Will you sell the car or you will change the driver?
The driver, obviously.
So that's we have to need to learn. And one thing, second thing, you are talking about the investor is not coming to the country. I just give you one small fact. Did you have look at the human capital index of the world?
Yes.
Afghanistan is 1 point higher than Pakistan.
Yes. You are among the bottom.
Pakistan is at 134th, and Afghanistan is 133. That is a war-torn country. 40 years they are fighting a war. Still their human capital index is better than you. There are some lessons we need to learn. We have to come out of this oratory stuff. Oh, that's we are doing this. We are the one of the best nation. Or like that. These things don't pay off. The things really pay off when you start to move your hand. You are looking like that. We are fooling ourselves. We are saying so. Okay. We are saying we are going for digitalization. We are inviting the best technology company from the world. So, do you have the skill, require the skills to work in those areas? No. Do you? These are the things like that. Sometimes it make as I feel like that. So what is the planning is going on? You're talking about a long-term strategy. I'm worried about the short-term strategy.
If you
So-
have a long, then you can make a short term
that's
so
what I'm
that
saying.
it
So
has
that's-
incremental
in alignment.
So
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. You need to plan according to your resources. If you don't have the resources, like you cannot say like I will borrow and build this, I will borrow and build this. Someday you have to pay back, and there is an interest rate. You have to pay back
You are taking loans to pay the interest of the
interest. That is the
Of the
real
loan.
That is a in real if you real economics you talk about, that is a debt trap, not the CPAC. This is a debt trap which we are facing due to the IMF, World Bank, or these ADB and these are the
other
Western
financial
partners.
donors, yes.
That is a real time debt trap, and even we have crossed that limit of debt trap. Now we are in the policy trap. They are dictating us policies.
Now
that is the
that reminds me of another very interesting story. That is about 106% hike in petroleum levy, sir. Pakistan People's Party, PML, and they all went after the government. Sir, they were supposed to decrease the petroleum prices by ₹5 or something, according to the rates in the international market. But sir, 106% hike in petroleum levy. Don't you think that is also going to further add to the misery, sir? This inflation is going to go further up.
As far as inflation is concerned, let me regarding that housing scheme.
Yeah, please
we
comment on
don't
that, and
have-
after that I want you
right,
to
yes,
also comment on
we
this.
don't have so far any research on vulnerability of Pakistani households. So that research is being conducted, and if the results come and that kind of data is available, then you can see what kind of mechanism should be developed to finance this kind of housing schemes. So we don't have so far any research. We have applied in every institutions, but we have not have so far any financial vulnerability of Pakistani household. Is there, Rami Sahib, any research? Not yet.
There is something like that. There is a private research.
one
But
thing
I would add one
I
thing.
think Barrier Town must have done a lot regarding that. They should learn from them also.
And then, one thing I want to add
one
here,
of my students is doing PhD thesis on it.
I just want to add one thing
Almost
here.
completed.
I just want to add one thing here. So you talked about the PIDE. So what Liberty PIDE have to do the independent research?
Mostly they have done on poverty. Poverty is a transitionary
Pakistan
phenomenon.
Institute of Development Economics, right?
But independence they have.
You tell us that, sir.
Yes.
You bring your independence at your own.
No, who will pay them? So if you are, they point someday, they think
Okay.
like that. We have to point this one. They point that person. It's a total on the will of the government, and that's why look. That is a bigger debate. If you look at that, so why the think tank culture being promoted? Because you did not allow your universities to do the independent search, and you did not give them
That
the
is a
resources.
very important point. Who
We
is
have
creating new
provided-
knowledge
I mean,
here? No one.
It's a very big debate.
Existing knowledge is just
It-
studied,
it's-
and then
it's-
you need
it's
to
a-
reproduce
it's a
that
big
on a piece of
debate,
paper
It's a big debate
to get a
Let's,
grade.
give some other time to
No, no,
on
sir,
the
that is a
research.
very important
On
point.
the research, if we want to discuss, because we have not invested on research which is more Pakistan oriented.
So good private companies invest around 40% of their revenue on research.
Right.
At least 40%. Janab.
For example,
Regarding your levy.
you know,
Yeah. Quick comment,
Okay.
sir, and then I'll.
we are just talking about R&D. This is a very sad state of affair in our country. The government has not given much priority to it. You know, it's just a matter of experience. One day we develop a very, in capacity of a government servant, I was associated with health ministry. We developed a very big program worth many billions.
Okay.
You know, and it was a passing remark before then the deputy chairman of the Planning Commission,
Planning Commission,
PND, that and the question was that will this project take off within time, number one. Number two, will there is a 100% guarantee that no resource will be diverted or misused, and it would be spent in a manner it has been described within the book. Everybody said we cannot give any guarantee. Just
And why was
imagine-
that so? Why was that so?
why, this is the state of affair, because everybody said that the governance structure is as such that you
There's
have
a lot
to
of
keep it.
loopholes, a lot of issues.
Yes, you loophole. Then there is bad accounting management. There is a
Issue
misuse
of transparency
funds.
also, sir.
Right, so many. So everybody was mentally ready that this project will not take off within time, and it will overrun its cost. So right now what you could see that even those who are policymakers by themselves, they know it very well, that we are in fact involved in such a vicious cycle that we can't come out of it. And all due to the bad, all due to the our failure to carry out a proper R&D, that why these issues are happening and why we have failed to solve them. There are so many good examples available in this world. There are bad examples which are also available from whose, from whom we can learn, we must learn this lesson. For example, you were just talking about Venezuela. It is one of the richest country in oil resource.
Fifth largest
but
oil
unfortunately,
producer. Oh yeah.
Because unfortunately it's a dysfunctional state because of the poor governance structure, right?
Not decisive.
So it means the
Poor
governance
governance
structure
structure
is
and
very important.
also
And who has to ensure a governance
Lots
structure?
of issues with the Americans. I mean, when you talk about Cuba or Venezuela or Bolivia or Argentina or Brazil for that matter, most of these countries, because the American influence is so much. I mean, NAFTA, if you remember, is a
Yeah,
North
NAFTA,
Atlantic
North
Free Trade
Atlantic.
Agreement.
Faisal Sahab, coming to this question, the Pakistan geographically is located in such a situation where we are crisscrossed by many civilizations, and each civilization has
blessing in
its own
disguise,
interest.
unfortunately.
And we have to management. Even we have to go forward as well to neutralize them. We have to sometimes show, our resistance, and we have to punish them if they cross the limits as well. And that requires a lot of, you need a lot economic strength and you need a military strength. as
You
well.
need a lot of political strength also and
political
political will.
strength.
Now, Dr. Saab, that 106% hike in petroleum levy, that is something which is really bothering me.
Yes.
I want your comment on that.
If you are adjusting this kind of situation, what happened actually, government have curtailed the import bill, and as a result, customs duties, anticipated revenue definitely got reduced. So there was no other option now the government to give some benefit to the customer and the consumers and adjust some of the losses which have not been managed through custom duties and adjust those. So this is what there is a interim arrangement so that revenue targets could be achieved at a maximum level 4.8 trillion, or IMF, according to IMF, it should be 5.2 trillion. 400 billion should be proceeds from privatization, not from tax and others. They from 2017 they are persistently emphasizing on government that they should improve on tax structure and look for other than tax structure source of revenues. Privatizations and all those steps are important. And this was the
Dr.
one
Saab,
of the,
do you
regarding that
believe
crisis.
that
let me-
privatization, I mean, obviously, if you privatize 5-6 of your major institutions, your circular debt is going to go down, number one. Secondly, sir, obviously some efficiency is going to be there. I'm not saying that from the very next month they'll be producing
course.
something super and your exports are going to go up, but at least you will be moving in the right direction. You favor privatization, Dr. Saab, in the current given circumstances, or no?
There are several methodology. Hungary examples of Hungary was having a very successful privatization experience, and many other countries. Regarding South America, like Ramesh was mentioning, yes, South America was having, unfortunately, there was some political reason that you have mentioned because it was dominated by Soviet and communists, so American was looking for that political influence there. So Pinochet was brought on 9/11, 1973. The government was toppled in Chile, and they all went into the debt crisis. Mexico, but at the same time, if you see, Korea escaped from the debt crisis, but Brazil, Mexico, Chile,
Such huge
all,
countries, part of the BRICS and Mint.
Yes.
I want to contribute here.
Right. Like, but there is a possibility that you can manage this crisis if those things are invested in the right direction. And I hope that government is taking it very seriously now. But the most important thing is we don't have a data culture. If you have a data, then you can make the decision.
Yes.
Initially, what happened, government has just stopped import and heavy exercise on import duties and so forth. So, because there is no data actually which product should be imported and which product should not be, which are used for export purposes, it is a investment. It is coming for investment purposes, or it is a luxury products. We don't have much data now. According to now government is introducing that even if you are importing chocolates and everything, yes, you pay the duty, but it should be, there should be a label in Urdu, because in order to curtail that smuggling, because that is
So there are a lot of
FATF.
issues. I mean,
So
there
there is a huge
last
problem.
quick
But
comment,
I
closing
think direction is right.
Now,
All right,
look,
closing remarks,
look at
sir.
that. In 1970s, when Pinochet came into the power, so there
Pinochet.
their debt was 10 billion. In the next 3-4 years, it was $45 billion. Because at that cycle, the IMF and the IFIs, they were promoting the debt, to take the debt. That was the trap being laid
Set
on.
for them, yeah.
One thing, and second thing, look at the France. When they went for the privatization in 80s, there was a term used, cash grabbers. They are the cronies who were grabbing, and ultimately it result in the West, yellow West movement. Look at the Greeks. Look, I can give you example from across the world. One thing, and second thing, what we are witnessing already. Look at the education and the health sector. The both sectors are becoming out of reach of the common man. Every other day you are finding people going to the Supreme Court. There's something you have to create some balance. In the private sector is not, because private sector, as you said, they look for the profit, that they are not nationalist. But state have to take
about
care.
the number game.
State has to take care of the people. You have to create better structure. It's not a justification like that. If they are not performing well, sell it. Government is not performing well, so
Sir,
should we sell
government's
this
job
country
is
to
not to
some
do,
other country?
Government's
do
job-
business.
No,
Their
yeah,
job
but
is
we
to
have to-
make such laws and make such procedures that can
Faisal,
facilitate
Faisal,
the business.
sir,
Look at Malaysia. They introduced, what they did, they hired the private sector CEOs and they performed well.
Yeah.
Now they have introduced the concept of government linked companies. They are performing really
That is
they are-
possible.
Yeah,
Government has-
possible.
So, last closing remarks,
Sir,
Jalil Saab.
I would like to say again, R&D plays very important role. In this respect, we must cultivate very strong relationship between the R&D center and the manufacturing sector and agriculture sector.
I think, sir,
And let them-
one of the very important lessons which we learned while doing the management courses, they said if you know your problem, half your problem is solved.
Solved.
it's all.
Problem is
basic-
homegrown.
Exactly. If they need to really dig in deep to understand where is the actual problem and then address it. You have multiple options, you can weigh those, you can evaluate them, put the best possible option there and see. If it doesn't work, then plan B. But it has to be done on ASAP basis. But anyway, Jalil Saab, thank you very much. Prasad, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.